Welcome all. Welcome to University of Indonesia and all the collaboration to the discussion of civic engagement in natural resources and the role of women as agents of change. Thank you for all the participants who coming, and also the speakers, respected speakers, Professor Jatna Supriatna as guest opening will be become an opening speakers, and the rest will be, we have a four speaker here: Professor Yunita, Winarto, Chandra Kirana, and Nonette Royo, and Maggie Moorman. We will introduce you later about the all the speakers. First of all, we are delighted that we can have this discussion, very important discussion of the engagement of civic engagement in natural resources and the role of women as agents of change. From the four speakers, all speakers are women, so they are competent to say about this, and only two men. The first will be Professor Jatna Supriatna. We know her. We know him as one respected professor of conservation biology from University of Indonesia, and to him, I'm pleased to take the board. Pak Jatna, please.
Thank you, Pak Rudi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and Bapak Ibu. For those who are in Indonesia, of course, afternoon. For those in Australia, Maggie is in Australia, so it might be, it's already late afternoon. Thank you. I think the first thing is I'd like to thanks to the panelists, Professor Yunita, Ibu Chandra Kirana, Ibu Nonette Royo, Ibu Maggie Moormans. All is I knew for a long time. For those a very important and good speaker. And so the ideas of civic engagement, especially the role of women in this situation, especially during the SDG, it's a very important. So I'll let you know that the host is the Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources. This institute is originally 16 center at UI, and now it's formed to be one institute. They call Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources, comprised to the one discipline like physics, chemists, and many others, plus multidiscipline such as Research Center for Climate Change, also biodiversity and conservation, and many others. So this time we different webinar, because used to be we are working with Griffith University, so that we have 13 webinar already, and this during the 2-3 months pandemic, and then we have the high-level dialogue last week. And and so our activity during the pandemic, of course, it's a work from home, so we always has a different scenario or different system. We cannot meet each other, but I think the virtual, it's really good so that we can still have discussion. So as SDG mentioned about the no one left behind, so means that all the stakeholders, all the roles of stakeholder is very important, especially women, you know, SDG 5 on the gender equality. It's also very important. I think this engagement is a very crucial to our SDG. But for ASEAN, I think it's only SDG, but also the economic cooperation starting 2016. So in ASEAN, it's not only we started the SDG, but also started the economic cooperation between 10 countries in ASEAN. So that's really important of how that we, these 5 years stages one of the SDG should be implemented together. Between one hand is the SDG, the other one is the collaboration on the economic between among the 10 countries in ASEAN. So this civic engagement, so when I was involved, is just giving the uh, prakata, what's the prakata? Is the word. Huh?
Forward.
Yeah, forward. Yeah, he just giving the forward in the book. So the book itself was edited by Dr. Muhammad Indrawan and friends. So when I see the book, I was so excited because this is really important of how that really civic engagement in the ASEAN communities. And because of that, there are so many experiences from many other countries, including Indonesia. So those who writing that the paper really based on the experience of each countries. So to be short, I think it's a very important for those audience participant in the webinar. Hopefully you can really listen to the very important person who is involved in this subject. Thank you very much. So having good webinars. Thank you, Pak Rudi.
Thank you, Pak Yatna. Well respected Pak Yatna, thank you very much from your point of view. And I forgot to mention that we should appreciate Didi for this initiative because Didi is having huge network. I cannot imagine that he is working of this. And I should announce. Let me share the screen now about the speakers. And this is the book look like. The title is Civic Engagement in Asia. But our discussion now will discuss one of the series because the book it will be some series like 5 or 4 series will be engaged all some authors, of course. The book compiled about 24 chapters, experience on lesson from transformative learning in quest of sustainable future in Asia. As we understand, Asia is very important region and we so diverse, including Indonesia itself, because of the tribe, the lifestyle, and everything we can learn from this state and this country. Also, we are neighboring with the other nations. So, to do for this first session, we will have for speaker, Professor Yunita Winarto from University of Indonesia. Second, Chandra Kirana as Director of Sekar Kawung Foundation. And Nonette Royo, is that correct? Nonette Royo. And Maggie Moorman. Nonette Royo is Executive Director of the Tenure facility in Stockholm. I think she is also from Samdana. And Maggie Moorman, Research Fellow at the University of Griffith University of Australia. One by one, I should introduce our respected speaker. Yunita Triwardani Winarto is professor at Anthropology, Department Anthropology and Faculty of Social Science, University of Indonesia. And she is also a member of Indonesian Academy of Science. I think IP, one of the top scientist organizations that in this country. And Maggie Moorman has experience over 2 decades and experience in community conservation, community engagement, and sustainable livelihood development in Europe and Latin America, ASEAN, Oceania. She will be our commentator at the last of our conversation according to the schedule. And Nonette Royo, I think she is Filipino. Nonette is a lawyer and a land rights specialist practitioner in assisting indigenous people and local community organizations gain better tenure and negotiating natural resources management rights. So of course, she have rich experience that we can ask in the discussion. Chandra Kirana, Kiki, have already 25 years experience focusing on human well-being and ecological sustainability. At the book, she is write something about the Tenure of Sumba, I think. And I think Kiki is an expert on this kind of thing, but as she is coming from Kawung Foundation. Kawung is name of batik. Correct, Kiki? Thank you very much. Let's just quick from this share screen. And we can start the conversation according to the schedule here. The starting will be Nonette Royo. Sorry, so sorry to say, from Samdana Institute, board member. And Ms. Royo, would you speak about 7 minutes regarding the your presentation in civic engagement in Asia and regarding women's role on natural resources? Your time, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Salamat sore, sudah sore di Indonesia ya. It's already late in Indonesia. I am very pleased to be here to speak with all of you. I have not chosen to give a PowerPoint so I can have a direct interaction with the audience. The book is available and we are focusing really on civic engagement, indigenous peoples and local communities being the center of the work that Samdana Institute, of which I still am a member, I still am a fellow, has done, and that is what is in the book. Currently, this experience of 25 years working in Indonesia has informed a lot my work in the big regions of the world, Africa, Latin America, and also Asia, based here in Stockholm, for the same work of indigenous peoples and for supporting indigenous peoples and local communities. So I would emphasize on really the value of civic engagement that has informed the work. And it is that which is to us very, very, very clear in these hard times of the pandemic. The way people respond voluntarily or even at the risk of their lives, people are by nature, especially women, coming forward to support their community. And in this work that we're writing about, it is about natural resources management, supporting what is sustaining the community, the forests, the water, the farms, and the way to manage that, and also supporting each other, the social relations, ensuring that conflict is resolved and ensuring that people are heard, and minimizing the damage of what likely could happen if the conflict continues. That and the skills that are required and the knowledge required and gained in the process is essentially put together in forms that are passed on to the next generation. So this is the training, exchange, ensuring that the young people are coming forward and also learning. So these are the sort of the approaches that informed and continue to evolve in the organizations that we support and is described in this book by the Sandana Institute. At the same time, is something that we as individuals do, you know, in our own selves, in our own communities. So I would like to really for women in Southeast Asia that we have touched in the experience in this book. The most prominent ones are for example, in Mindanao, uh, the women described there in uh, the national park of Kitanglad. That is an amazing practice of getting the women elders calling together the community. So Bae in Atlawan is the most prominent there, uh, to remember or recall the interbeing. So this beings are not just people, but also nature, birds, land, spirit that they consider very valuable to keep uh, their relationship with each other and in the future in the forest, and how it serves them in the future uh, is maintained. So in this work, it is not just so it's not just the mapping of the territory and negotiating the boundaries, but it's also the recalling of practices, traditional knowledge to inform how they would relate with nature, make it less extractive, more nurturing and sustaining, and essentially informed by the values of reciprocity. So there's that prominent part of also the book describes Marena. Yeah, this in the Kulawi community in Sulawesi, and Buyeni there is a Tinangata leader of that community, and they are able to negotiate the territorial boundaries to become a part of what was recently awarded by the Ministry of Forestry, um, uh, social forestry, under social forestry. I think it's Hutan Adat. So it's one of, again, a process of continuing narratives of consultation, determining the boundaries, talking about land use, uh, together, combined with understanding what the neighbors are expecting. Um, the minimum requirement of responding to each other's boundaries, and also contributing to the plan of the village. That is um, put aside and actually recognized as an area for community management. So the other value in this community service and civic engagement that is prominent now more than ever is this collectivity of efforts of coming together, looking at the territory together. Uh, it's easy to sort of survive individually when there is not a crisis. But right now, with the crisis being really prominent, it has been obvious that together is better. So the community has done a lot more of this work when we were supporting them as models or examples of working together, and this is informing the young people as well. There is this of course this divide of modern versus traditional. The youth and their education, and they're being civilized, and the elders are traditional that are not educated and uncivilized. Somehow this whole communication combined with the needs of the times have kind of come together now to show us that in fact, when it comes to really the ultimate crisis of survival, we can work together. So I would probably, I think I used up my 7 minutes, and there many of more of the stories are in the chapter, and there are more. Yeah, so there are more that we all know. But in Southeast Asia, for me, my experience directly interacting with women, elders, leaders, and even young people are very special in the sense that it gives me a sense of satisfaction or pride or hope, a combination of those, because they have this wisdom of keeping a family surviving and keeping the community working together because it serves the family. And it is in that sense the basics in the kitchen, what you need to get from from nature so that the kitchen is able to feed more people, is informing many of these values. It's very practical, but it's also very deep. And yeah, so this is where I would leave my sharing, and hoping that values kind of come back to us again. That is going to help us through this crisis that we're facing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Royo. Very inspiring indeed about your presentation. And Royo write a chapter on that, one of the 24 chapter in the books, and the topic building recognition for resource right of indigenous people and local communities. Hopefully the book will be released soon, so we can learn together deeply on what she write of. I think the second chance will be for Mbak Kiki Kartika Chandra. Kartika is director of Sekar Kawung Foundation, and without any more comment, Kiki, please, your time.
Thank you, Pak Rudy. I'll share my screen, yeah?
Sure.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you, Pak Rudy. Good afternoon to everyone. Good morning to Nonette, and good night to those who are in Australia. Oh, what has happened there? I will follow up on what Nonette stopped at discussing values, and I'm going to discuss our work in East Sumba, where we used the tradition of Tenun Ikat to strengthen the cultural values in the society there. Okay, how do I? Oh, here.
Yes. Please. Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
How come this only what?
You need to.
Somehow when I put it full screen, it. Okay. So I'll start from the beginning again. So we carried out this 18-month program in this village to use Tenun Ikat to explore the values in the culture, especially the feminine values, the nurturing values. We didn't specifically focus only on women, but we focused on understanding the feminine values in that culture. The vision was for us to be able to help the community improve their village economy by restoring nature and enriching the culture and strengthening the cultural roots, improving ecological resilience and creating a robust, sustainable economy. Now, this is where we worked in East Sumba. That's the island southernmost in Indonesia. There's no land between East Sumba and Australia. And we worked in this very small area in Canberra. The village context, it's a very dry area, but you can see here that the villages where the tanun is being made, the textiles are being made, are always much greener because they use all of these plants. They use 20 different plants to make their tanun. So by our focus was on trying to strengthen the tanun culture and economy so that it could take over a bit the beef economy, because all of this area, the dry area, is so dry because it's used as grazing land for cattle. So our methodology was through participatory research, focusing on understanding the values in this. We did it with this group of weavers, textile artisans, actually, not weavers, that was set up by Ibu, Paluan Dalam Mahamu, set up by Mama Dan, we call her. I forget her full name. And this group she had set up a long time ago. We documented 42 symbols from 50 pieces of cloth and used those symbols to then read the cloth, because it turned out that the young people didn't really understand the values that were woven into the cloth anymore. So through a research where the young people asked the elders, we created a textile symbol dictionary, which we then used to read the cloth. This was also a process that helped people to understand that they were actually artists instead of just artisans. This symbol, for example, is the symbol of the ancestor. It's a human with animal body parts, symbolizing what Nonette was calling interbeing. Well, this is the symbol of interbeing in East Sumba, where the human being is actually integrated to the entire nature, and therefore they have to take care of nature. And you can see that each artisan's design is very, very different. You can see here the habak, that's the symbol of beauty and a hardworking woman. Each artist has a very different way of expressing the same symbol. This process was really, really valuable in bringing out the self-confidence, especially in women designers, to be able to talk to people about their art and about their inspiration when they were creating these pieces. You see here the cuttlefish. Each artisan has a very different way of expressing it. This is the Naga, adapted from Chinese legend. This was an important part of the process because people began to realize that throughout history they were influenced by international influences, by outside influences, and that gave them a sense of freedom to be able to also now incorporate new designs into their textiles. From the process of reading 50 pieces of textiles, we came to the insight that a piece of textile, there's 3 types in this village, it turns out. There's a textile that holds a blessing, there's a textile that holds a lesson, and there's a textile that holds a story in it. Now, this was something that they had not really realized before the process of the research. So this is a piece with blessing in it. It's the seahorse down here, symbol of good luck and beauty, and the hiambaroti flower. I don't know what that is in English, but that's the symbol of beauty. So this would have been a textile that was given to help deliver a blessing to somebody. I can't see the suddenly. Have I run out of time? Now this was a piece that has become very rare, and nobody makes it anymore because they think that tourists will not like it. But it's actually a rare cloth that combines these symbols, which together mean, this cloth means that humans have to safeguard the balance between heaven and earth. And this is the one that is mostly made now, is the story of a royal burial. We also found out that the ikat creative process is actually a process that involves men and women equally there, and that it actually includes all sorts of different experts. We were able to figure out the social economy structure of the village by unpacking the value chain of a textile. There's the yarn maker, there's designers, there's blue experts, there's red color experts, there's the actual weaver, and there's the kabakil weaver. They are the people who do the finishing. And in fact, all of them in the past were specialists. So a piece of textile is made by many, many people. We went in thinking it would be only made by women. And we found that the designer is the person who holds everyone together. So by working with the designer, it makes it easier for us to reach all of the other actors in the value chain process. So the textiles they made after this study, we used in an exhibition and also a art auction. And in these exhibitions, each designer, so 7 designers from this village, 3 of them women and 4 of them men, had their own areas in the exhibition and their own pieces, and they were there to explain them to people. And you can see here an innovation. This piece here is the story, the folklore of how the Sumba people came to be in Sumba. And it starts off with people landing on the island and ends with a man and his wife going to church on a motorbike. This weaver took the approach of telling a story through his tenun. We also had a fashion show to show how the ikat can actually be used in current times. And here were the artisans, the artists who were featured in the exhibition, held in the Museum Bank Mandiri, to actually try to tell the government that if we really want to develop Indonesia in a sustainable way, we need to start banking on culture, and we need to understand deeply that culture, both the feminine and the masculine values held within. So through that approach, we were able to start in the village a few different small businesses in the village, you see here, and creating what we call a beehive economy in the village, where there's not competition, but there's collaboration between the weavers, the yarn makers, the dye experts, and the people making the boxes to sell the tenun in. So through this approach, we can build a more collaborative economy. These are just a few numbers of what came out of this project. The exhibition had 1,675 visitors. It earned the weavers $50,000. It was held over 2 weekends in Jakarta. 500 of their catalogs were sold, and now there's a youth and culture and eco-tour business. There's a homestay in the village, and there's the textile galleries. They planted more than 600 trees, 75% of them all died. But again, now because the textile culture is much stronger, they're beginning to plant more trees. And interestingly, the reaction to COVID in this village was to enhance, instead of creating more textiles and waiting for tourists, they are now creating natural dyes. So they will be able to sell powdered natural dyes, which is a much easier commodity to sell in this time. So this is a new design that also came out of the result of that, that study. It's called the Pinang design, created by Cornelis Ndapakanang, and it's supposed to reflect the pinang. The pinang is a betel nut. If you cut it through the middle, this is what it looks like. And it means cohesion, kinship, collaboration, and it's a very deep value in the East Sumba culture. Yeah, so I'll stop at that and give it back to you, Pak Rudi. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Mbak Kiki. Oh, the color. The comment here is breathtaking, colorful, beautiful, all the things that the culture from the values as well. And we learn a lot from you, Kiki, how rich this country is and how East Asia become one of, you know, very, very important in biodiversities of cultures as well, the biodiversity of life and biodiversity of this a plant that they can find dyes and everything. We are not going to open conversation yet, but we have the third speaker, Professor Yunita, on her presentation will be inspiring us to enrich this conversation. Prof Yunita, time is yours.
Okay, is it okay, the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so thank you very much for the organizers and for Pak Jatna, Pak Didi from the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences at Universitas Indonesia. I'm not one of the book author of that book, but I was invited by Pak Didi to just share my experience. But before that, I would like to appreciate the two women as agents of change. They have a remarkable, inspiring stories of how they became the agents of change. So in my perception, the two agents were able to produce effects. Yeah, effects to the world, and thus change the world of the people they are facilitating through their facilitation of people to reach their dreams. We heard from Bu Nonette and Bu Kirana, Chandra Kirana, how to make people's life prosperous and sustain people's habitat. So I just took this picture from the book chapters of both Nonette and Chandra Kirana. So I would like to go first with, Samdana Foundation. So thank you very much, Nonette, because I was one of your grantee. I was able to get the grant for the farmers. So thank you for that. So Samdana Foundation has a very, very important objectives and mission. And through all their works in 25 years, addressing, in my point of view, the fundamental aspect of people's life is their culture. Because without any land and place to live, like what they are doing, how to engage the civic, the people, to sustain their nature and to protect their habitat, would the people sustain their life and culture? So would they be able to manage the natural resources for their livelihood? And would they have their freedom to make decisions and develop their own strategies? So addressing those issues are very crucial, especially nowadays with the conversion of, we know already, the rainforest to oil palm plantation, the sawah to industrial area, etc. So how to avoid marginalizing local people that lead to the extinction of their culture. But now in the modern times, in the development area, if many people cannot have right to own property, would they be able to obtain access? This is the important concept also. The ability to gain benefits from managing resources in the others' property rights. So to what extent have the state and others been able to provide access to local people to manage natural resources if people lost their rights or do not have any rights to own properties, so as to enable them sustaining their culture? So I perceive this as a very important mission of Samdana Foundation. And for Ibu Chandra Kirana, for the Sekar Kawung, so the theme in your book also about the biodiversity and culture, you show already how you help the people preserve their culture and value their culture. So this is the phrase that I wrote in my article, I think maybe 12 years ago, that where the seeds go, there the knowledge flows. So the seeds of having the dyes, to have the colors and all, if they extinct, if those seeds extinct, yeah, would the knowledge of those seeds exist? So the very important thing for the bioculture, bio-nature protection or management is to keep the natures, the seeds still there. So without any knowledge, would the culture of cultivating the seeds persist? Therefore, now in my point of view, instead of using the phrase biodiversity and culture, why not using the phrase of biocultural diversity instead of biodiversity and culture? So I think 10 years ago, I already introduced this thought that we have the biodiversity to protect, but how about the culture? So biocultural diversity, the culture will be diverse if we have the bio-nature resources as well in the hand of the communities. So Sekar Kawung Foundation has not only been able to facilitate the local culture to persist, and we saw in the presentation of Bu Chandra, but also to enrich people's knowledge and ability to improve their culture. And by doing that, to affect other people's appreciation, as well as to conserve their natural resources. So those are the two remarkable stories of the two women as agents of change. Now, Pak Didi invited me also to share my work. So my work is based on anthropological work. So I'm an anthropologist. I do anthropological work, but based on agrometeorology. And what I'm doing now and has been going on for 10 years is to facilitate farmers to go better to climate change. So which is better, being a woman or an anthropologist? So I've never thought special as a female scientist, but as an anthropologist. So why? As an anthropologist, I do not have any training actually in agrometeorology. I'm an anthropologist. So an interdisciplinary approach and understanding is crucial. I've been trained to carry out an ethnographic fieldwork, being immersed among the local community to understand people's culture, but not as a facilitator or knowledge provider like Bu Nonette and also Bu Chandra Kirana. Therefore, developing a skill to build up a transdisciplinary approach based on an ongoing intersubjectivity and reflexivity is a must. So how to be a good and capable anthropologist carrying out such collaborative work is the most challenging task. How about myself as a woman or a female scientist? Being able to be accepted by the local community is the most significant thing. So this is already proved by the two ladies. Yeah. So this is the anthropological engagement in agrometeorological learning. based on interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary collaboration. This is the structure of how we build up our collaboration. The agrometeorologists and the anthropologists are working together. So we refer to the universal values that no problem of male-female differences in scientific collaboration. Well, so my partner is a male leading a prominent scientist in agrometeorology, and he passed away, and then he was substituted by a female agrometeorologist from South Africa. But to build up the transdisciplinary collaboration with farmers and also with all the regional authorities and extension intermediaries, then the local values matter. Acceptance by farmers depends on the perceived benefits for their farming strategies, individual needs, and also in line with cultural values and norms. So this is the time when I introduced the science field shops to a farmer group. The first time I introduced this with my collaborator, with my partner, the late Professor Stichter. The group consists of male and female farmers in Gunung Kidul, Yogyakarta. The female farmers is half of the, like 20 farmers, 10 female farmers, 10 male farmers. And female farmers are very, very active, very prominent in farming strategies, practices. Why? Because many of their husbands have to earn money in Jakarta, selling bakso, etc. So this is a female farmer, guided by my assistant, and to write down the rainfall that they measure every day. This is the rain gauge. The farmers mention this as Obama rain gauge because we bought it from America. So this is the notebook of a female farmer, very precise, detailed, and tidy. But then I introduced this into the group of farmers in Indramayu Regency, West Java, dominantly male farmers. In their perception, farmers are male farmers and women are their wife. So the collaborative work has been persisting up to now. So it is more than almost 11 years already. And these are the farmers. They were determining the rainfall stations because we asked them to invite their colleagues, their friends, to have a rainfall station. So we start introducing how to measure the rainfall. And this is, we introduced the introductory workshop, only 2 women there, myself and a female farmer, a leader of a farming group. And this is a farmer was measuring rainfall in the farmer's made rain gauge in his field. So this is farmer's made rain gauge because we cannot afford to always purchase the rain gauge from the States because it is not only expensive, but the tax is also very expensive. So the science field shops is the name of the collaborative work, interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. This is an arena for a dialogic agrometeorological learning to solve vulnerabilities. So we provide 8 climate services to measure rainfall daily in each farmer's field, observing agroecosystems to improve their agroecosystem analysis, and evaluating yields are very important. Why the yields of one farmer high and another farmer is low. So they compare yields one season to another season, the same season in different years. And we create an arena to have a dialogue and discussion between farmers, farmer scientists, farmer extension staffs, in 2 ways communication, not in 1-way communication. Yes, and farmers organize their own activities. The most important thing is our monthly seasonal scenarios based on climate prediction by NOAA and also by BOM, by Australia. So farmers could not anticipate what's going to happen in the future. So will it be raining or will it be dry? Will we have a long drought, etc. So we help them, and with the seasonal scenarios, they improve their anticipation capability and decision making. And we provide new knowledge based on farmers' vulnerabilities, carrying out win-win solution experiment and various other experiments to find solution for any vulnerabilities. And since 2018, we help them digitizing their rainfall in agrometeorological based on agrometeorological.
your time is about up.
Okay, so this is the enrichment of farmers' agrometeorological schema. So I do not read this because time is up. So, but the important thing is this one. By doing this and being able to anticipate future climate conditions, they were able to produce more sustainable yields, reducing unnecessary costs, improving ecosystems resilience, and advancing their knowledge and farming culture. And one of my students, female one, got their perspective of what my roles is. So I do not need to read this one, but I'm happy with this final perspective by the farmer's wife. So this is my final slide. This is farmer's pride and my pride as well. A farmer scientist is explaining his rainfall graphs, daily rainfall graph, annual rainfall graph, probability rainfall graph, below normal, normal, above normal. And he explained it to a professor from Bogor Agriculture Institute at a farmer's exhibition. So this is my share about what I'm doing now and in the last decade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring because you are educating lay people to become more scientists and
thank you.
Professor as well. This is very important thing as an outcome for the community engagement and civic engagement. Thank you very much, Prof Yunita. And we still have a review from Maggie Moorman. Of course, she's already in, right? Maggie, your time. You still have 7 minutes.
Thank you. I don't have slides, so I'm just going to talk to the screen, if that's okay. So nothing to share. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this webinar. And I'm very impressed with everyone's English. I wish my Indonesian was as good as everyone's English. So it's wonderful to hear that. So yeah, the topic around women as change makers. I think we've got to start at looking at, you know, we've got some beautiful role models here today. We've got Yunita, Chandra, and Antoinette that are really amazing role models as part of, you know, women in leaderships that creating that change and that are catalyzing that, and which is amazing. There is still quite a lot of inequality in regards to women and their ability to create change. You know, for example, when I'm looking at sort of the STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and maths, there's still not enough women that are enrolled in those type of fields. When I'm looking at wage and salary packages as well in Australia, there is still very much of a difference between the salary income from males and females for the same roles. It also comes down with tasks in your household where women, even though they're working full-time, still conducting the most amount of work compared to the male in the same household with the similar tasks. So there's still quite a lot of area that we all need to cover. And so what we can do in terms of achieving, you know, moving forward from those, from that position that we're in is really creating role models and empowering the girls within our communities in order to become a role model themselves, but also empower them and inspire them to become change makers. And in regards to becoming a change maker and leaderships, and I guess within sort of the Australian landscape, you know, from all the universities in the country, we only have 4 universities that have a vice chancellor as a female, heading that as a vice chancellor. When we're looking around the world and leading countries, we're looking, for example, at you know, Germany or New Zealand, all those countries that are doing so well within this pandemic have female leaders, and they're providing some amazing role models and approaches. And the reasons behind that is, in my opinion, after traveling, you know, throughout the world and experiencing communities in Latin America, as well as the Pacific Islands and Australia, Indonesia, and Europe, is I think women still have more of a softer approach to certain things than sort of the male component when you're looking at policy. So there's when you're when you're looking at leadership from a female perspective, there's a lot more sort of empathy that's been sort of sprinkled throughout the policy and strategic decisions. And I think when we're looking at the change makers, becoming more accepting to those soft skills, which I think we're training in regards to schools, we're getting trained at all those, you know, hard skills like data and technology and engineering, and getting experience with those is great, but we also need to look at really trying to build the soft skills in our community. And we're doing that Chandra is doing through, you know, creativity and kinesthetic skills, or where Yunita is working with the farmers and creating more of a scientific aspect, including women in that same field. So when we're putting that together and trying to create more empathy, understanding from all the sides, but be open towards that, maybe we can fill that gap in regards to you know, having women as role models. Because in the end, if we have that for our girls within our community, they would aspire and they know they can achieve those similar goals and similar things. I wasn't part of creating this book, but I'm sure it's full of stories of female change makers, which are wonderful role models. And I think when we're looking at creating webinars or meetings or even high-level dialogues, having a representation of more strong women as part of that, I think is a really important example of showing that we're inclusive and really creating less of a gap between sort of the understanding that there's also women that have you know, a lot of that those strengths that males have. And I think in regards to the inclusiveness of that and having more role models, we might then get to the level of where, you know, the salaries are more at an equal level, or where there's more women enrolling into the STEM categories, or where, for example, some of the policies now as part of the pandemic within Australia that are being implemented are actually affecting more of the male employment categories than the female employment categories like nursing or childcare, et cetera, et cetera. So starting to look at policies that also include that gender, I think is really important. And within the environment, you know, having someone that can create that care for the environment, because no one's going to create change if we're not instilling some kind of love and care for that particular location, whether it's a forest or an ocean or a community or a culture. We've got to create that love and care. And once we have that instilled in the community, then we can start creating change. Change is not going to be created if we don't care about that in particular. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to add to that. And yeah, wonderful stories and sharing that I've heard so far in regards to some of the amazing projects that you're doing. And yeah, I'd love hearing about it. So thanks so much for including me.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Such as comprehensive discussion on review on that three speakers. They are all very great women on their works on this field of nature, culture, biodiversity, and also the life itself. I remember I was coming from Kalimantan and now spent about 20 years in Jakarta. I understand that women is always very humble and they are helping the economy of the family as well. They are participating in the works of in Kalimantan in some way. I think it's very important to help them in our life and community. Next will be a general discussion. There are some notice already in our chat room. If I can select it, some question here goes to, I think, from Agus Salim. And a question from question to Mbak Nonette. Many thanks for change makers with Indonesian and social forestry. What do you think would be best facilitation option in terms of reforming the forestry governance? That's for Ms. Royo.
Yes, just quickly on this question. Thank you, Fachruddin. What is important is the understanding that our systems, especially in Southeast Asia and many parts of other parts of Asia and in Indonesia, there is the formal and the informal system. And what we know when we go visit the community is that there is always a common understanding in the community to protect that which is the source of water, to protect that which is their source of food, to protect that which is to them sacred, some forests, especially for indigenous people. So the governance is really in the reliance of that subsidiarity, the force of a community wanting to live healthy and safe and secure. That you see in formal and informal settings. And for the governance that's formal, for just for reference for Indonesia, it is open, and now that the ministry and the government has decided that social forestry is a really good approach to improve communities' situation. It's important to organize, to self-organize. Yeah, so there are officially community organizations, formal, informal, lambaga, pangalola, hutan, and also hutan, lambaga adat. Yeah, it's where what we realize in our experience is that communities, wherever indigenous or local, they know how to self-organize. So if we respect that around that which exists, yeah, it's already there. So around that which exists, you can formalize, depending on what applies, and that really can be broader than what's defined in the formal system. But what's reliable is what works, and then what's reliable is when the communities communicate this with their village heads, and the village heads respect this and put this in their village plans, and the village plans become appreciated in the district. And so sometimes we're stuck with too much formality, but lack the valuing of that which works. Yeah, and so if the government sometimes understands it's a dialogue here, sometimes it's not good when there is something coming in from the outside very strong, right? That cuts all the forests, and then it becomes really difficult, and that's when the legal aspects really have to happen. But when there's not that, and there is a good relationship, and we see this a lot in many places, then the community groups, the leaders, and especially the women here, this is where I feel that the women are peacemakers in many ways. Yeah, in my experience, I can speak about that. But many of us, because they have a broader sense of responsibility of feeding the people, making sure the kitchen is full, making sure that their people are clothed properly, and the culture is maintained, and the rituals are conducted for those that still value that. Then it is important to really listen to their voices, and in fact to drop what has been very much of a very materialistic sometimes aspiration, to look into what really works with family. So that's part of governance also. So I think I can just say through that's the legal part, and then the ethical part is really important, and to balance that with what we are facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a question for Chandra Kirana, and with the respect of great colors and dream, and with the Sumba, colorful. The question is, if you have one sentence for us all, what do you think is the strongest aspect in bioculture that is nowhere else outside our village? If you have one sentence for us.
One sentence.
Well, it's very difficult to have one sentence.
Well, it's very similar but very different as well with all other villages. it's very important if we go into villages in Indonesia or anywhere around the world to consider the nexus between biodiversity and culture in developing economic, in developing the economy, in developing the policies, everything. That is the foundation. And that has been disregarded all the time until now. I think I would like to add to Nonette actually that it's very important to do that. I'm at the moment working in Jambi, and the rainforest that is so diverse is actually full of what I call cultural keystone species. Like, and those are the species that women are have been working with, or the feminine aspect of the culture has been working with for millennia, but the market doesn't recognize them. And if the market doesn't recognize them, they will be cut down because development agencies and governments consider economic development as the primary goal in all villages. So sorry for the long sentence, paragraph.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kiki. Anyone would like to open? I can open the screen if you want. Please open your. If you have question, public, please. From the participant, we have 167 participants as well. We are go on live on YouTube, and this is also recorded. And if you want to ask something,
Fachruddin, Ibu Mona Lisa is raising her hand, I think.
Okay, Ibu Mona Lisa, where is she? Can you open your? Can someone open her room? Mona Lisa, I can't see it here. Or the other co-host, please. Ibu Mona Lisa, please. I see also
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Rudy, and thank you very much also for all the panelists for your excellent presentation. First of all, I would like to apologize that I cannot open my camera because I don't have a very sophisticated laptop that doesn't come with it. So apology beforehand. I'm actually originally coming from a small district in West Kalimantan, which is Ketapang district in West Kalimantan, and I would like to extend my greatest appreciation to all the panelists that has been providing us with a very insightful stories and experiences this afternoon. My question is, actually I already wrote them in the chat, but I would like to repeat it again here, is that maybe Ibu Yunita or Ibu Chandra or even Ibu Nonette can provide us with the insights, because as we all may know that sometimes the decision regarding land at local level is not only decided by local people or local government, but sometimes it is a decision that was taken by national or sub-national government. And if you have any insight or experience of dealing or being in a process with that situation, is there any lesson learned that we can take from your experience? That would be my question. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pak Rudy.
Welcome. Anyone want to answer? Yunita or Chandra or?
Yeah, thank you. Is it Ibu Mona Lisa? Yeah, Mona Lisa. Yeah. I do not talk about land, but about the government's policy. Yes, I'm working, and I've been working with farmers and with rice farmers from the, what do you call it, the very intensified rice farming area on the north coast of West Java. And rice is a political commodity. So farmers have to produce rice reaching or achieving the target determined by, not by the local government, but by the central government. So the central government already determined some amount of the total production of rice this year should reach this one. And it goes down until the local level of governments, for example, in the Regency area. So when I introduced this science field shop to the head of the Regency office, Agriculture Regency office, that this is the time when El Nino will come at the time 2018. So maybe we can introduce something how to cope with that. And then what's his response? No, don't tell my farmers that El Nino is coming. Why? I asked. Because if they know in advance, so maybe they can develop their strategies how to avoid the harvest failures. What to do next if the long drought is coming? But he said that, no, I have to secure the target of the national government to produce certain total amount of rice. If the farmers know this is El Nino, then they will not plant rice. And actually, in reality, there are some farmers who change to plant maize, not rice, because not enough water in the dry rain-fed fields. So how could they survive? So you know that our work to free the farmers to make decisions by themselves, learning from their agro ecosystem, learning from the rainfall distribution and the impacts on field and lands, and what's going to happen in the future, and make decisions. So actually, it is not quite in line with the top-down recommended strategy. So not about land, but about those policies among the, the rice production, national commodity area. That's my
That's why we have that scientist. You educated the scientists directly with the climate change.
We try to strengthen farmers' confidence. You have the rights to choose. If not, and they realize that if we follow the governments, for example, La Nina is coming and they have to plant 3 times a year. They said, no, we won't do that because we will risk the harvest failures. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for connecting that. Chandra?
Yeah, maybe I would like to raise the opportunity that we are now in the middle of COVID, actually, and a huge body of scientific evidence is saying that COVID is because the environment is damaged, because biodiversity is eroded, because climate change. We have a vicious circle of biodiversity, climate erosion, and we're collapsing. And the scientists are saying that if we do not improve the environment, if we do not address climate change, in fact, we will only be addressing COVID momentarily. And after that, there'll be more and more and maybe even worse viruses coming at us. So it's very important that now the national government really focuses on how Indonesia can restore its forests, so that there's more and more space for viruses to live safely without becoming danger for humanity. So maybe the government needs to start thinking of how it can diversify a lot of the palm oil monocultures, how it can use the still standing natural forests that are agro-ecosystems that are being managed by our indigenous peoples as forest seed banks. Like if you go in Sungai Utik, the community has what they call forest seeds. Ibu, you were talking about seeds. Well, the forest seed in Sungai Utik is actually clumps of natural forest that have remained over the millennia or over centuries of slash and burn. If you go to a newly slashed and burned field in this village, you will see that there's clumps of trees in the middle of the hills. And if you ask them, why do you keep those clumps of trees? Those are forest seeds, bibit hutan, katanya. And what will happen is in 5 years or 10 years, when we move on, those clumps will take over again and reforest this land. And that's why their traditional forest is so dense and looks so much like a natural forest. It's because it has old growth on it in clumps. Now, at this point of time in the evolution history of the world, I think it's important that the Indonesian government starts to look at these forest seeds and figure out how it can replant them or use the seeds to create better ecosystems in a lot of the kelapa sawits, because kelapa sawit, it will become a stranded commodity. It will follow batu bara. What is batu bara in English?
Coal.
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 Yeah, kelapa sawit is maybe 1 decade between coal. 10 years ago, coal was the prima donna for a lot of local governments in Indonesia, for the central government as well, but it is not anymore. And no, even China is not buying it. India is not buying it as much as it was before. And the same will happen to kelapa sawit. We need to use this moment to reforest those areas of land. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki. Any adding from Royo?
Just that in Indonesia, the laws are in place for planning. Yeah, and the planning, if you really look at it, yeah, is following the subsidiarity principle. So begin with the village looks at its monography desa, and this is a regular process. If the civil society and the community really uses this, then the voices of the prioritization will happen. So the lost legal systems. So what I'm saying is with Ibu Yuni, yeah, the village could have decided, even if there was this national pressure, the village can decide, and in our existing laws. So I think I go back to what the state now needs to do is to be really truly compliant with what laws they create, so that it will support the community to be able to support themselves, because it is impossible for the state to all be supporting the community if the crisis hits like this. Yeah, so it's the communities can support themselves if they're not stopped by all these other pressures. And so that's just what I can add, that the system is actually in place in many nations, but that it's just that it's not followed.
It's not.
Okay, this is also inspiring for the student. I believe there's hundreds of students are hearing us for the opportunity to do research or action research in the community and culture and biodiversity that is open for them, of course, to consult maybe with Samdana, maybe with Kiki, right? So we have also Prof Yunita here, which is very inspiring for these conversations. We still have time, and there's a question in chat room from Agil Salim. Could you explain what is the different works with female farmer in Gunung Kidul and with male farmers in Indramayu? What is the difference works with female farmers in Gunung Kidul and with male farmers in Indramayu? This is a question for Professor Yunita, perhaps.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the question. As long as the farmers, either female or males, are the decision makers of their farming practices, then they easily accept the learning, the new ideas introduced to them. They learned quite diligently. They are very industrious, and then they are very, enthusiastic, yeah, to learn new ideas, and especially to improve their anticipation capability. There are no differences in gender or in sexes about the ability to anticipate. But the difference lies on the involvement of either male or female. For example, female as wives, and they are not involved in the decision making, or actually they are decision makers also. But then the husbands who join the training, to join the learning, and they said, my wife do not need to join, I'm the one who joined. Then there is a knowledge gap. Then if the husband made a decision, I do not want to plant this kind of rice variety this season because it will be a short rainy season, And then if the wife does not understand why we have to take a risk, and sometimes, so I found that there are also conflict between husband and wives, because wives supposed to also being involved in their households, what you call it, household needs, and what are the risks, and they expect to get a good yields, and why in a sudden my husband made the changes. So this is sometimes happening. So the important thing is that how the wives could also be involved. So for example, the female farmers ask the wives to also measure the rainfall, ask the girls or the boys to also measure rainfall. And when I was in the field, I stayed in their houses and make a chat and help the female farmers to being accepted. So how that the new knowledge being accepted as what you call it, uniting household, yeah, that's the most important thing. Also the female, how they convince the male to accept their learning and to accept their decision making. That's the most challenging thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Yunita. The question was coming from Brigitta Escoro.
Oh, Brigitta.
And Brigitta is also asking Ms. Royo and Kiki, what is the challenge to involve female locals in the projects? Brigitta is asking again, what is the challenge? Of course, the challenge. We didn't say anything on the challenge. Kiki, please.
Well, in Tenun Sumba, there's no challenge, because there's no and there is yes, but what we are exploring is how the textile is being made and who is involved in the making process, and we're open to accept whether they are male or female, and that's what we learn. We learned, for example, that the blue color experts are almost always women. We learned that the red color experts are almost always men. So we didn't come in with a perspective of saying, oh, we only want to involve the women. But we then did find out that as the textile becomes more and more integrated into the mainstream economy, then we need to begin to deliver positive discrimination for the woman. For example, provide them with smartphones, because they would not be the first in the family to get the smartphone, for example, and to help them communicate outside of the village more easily. And so, because it's in the trading of the textiles that men become more dominant, and it's higher upper class men who become more dominant. But we see that internet is actually democratizing that process, because the buyer and the weaver or the artisan can actually connect directly.
Very nice. And now almost all Indonesian villages are very kind to researcher, to anyone who coming to the village. You know, they are so very pleased. So there's not so many challenges, I think. But maybe Ms. Royo, you have
lastly, and we all know this, but it's important to emphasize the respect for culture and the balance between that and values of inclusion and reciprocity. So it's important. Every culture is different ways of getting women involved. And I personally, when I go to a village, sometimes it's only the Kepala Desa and all the men. And I would have to say, Bapak, aku juga sedikit sendirian mau bicara dengan. Yeah, so I feel lonely alone here. I would like to talk with, but it's always there's role playing and there is needs. So the village knows what the needs are, what the roles are. It doesn't generally fit what we think. Oh, involve the women and you count the women and there's women involvement. It doesn't speak. The reality is not like that. So it's important, for what we're talking about, the village understands why, and then they actually give more women. There's some other elders that know some of this information. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, thank you very much. It's so inspiring for this university student as well, who are willing to go to the village and engage with this culture and diversity of nature and culture of our countries as well.
Just to add a little bit
Yeah,
about that in my presentation, also in my experience, so we have a diversity of local culture, local values, and local inclusion of women in the daily life. So we have to appreciate that. So when I came to the north coast of West Java, and the farmers said that farmers are us, the male, women are farmers' wives. So I have to appreciate that. I cannot enforce that. Oh, you have to include so many, the number of women to be included. But then there are other ways of how to also share. They have their knowledge transmission, sharing knowledge in their own ways. So we have to appreciate differences. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we still have 2 minutes left. If I can make a decision, is there anyone would like to ask something and open raise hand or no? If I give all the speaker for I should inform the review. Maggie, you didn't speak anything. Sorry, Maggie, please spoke up.
Where is
still there?
I want to hear Maggie.
Maggie will be already diving or something. Oh, okay. Maggie, sorry,
Sorry.
I mute. Unmute. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
I've just been chatting with Africa, who had a question in regards to the STEM, the barrier of women in STEM, and we've just been having a conversation sort of in the chat in regards to the reasons behind that. So that's all good. I've been busily typing away, but thanks for sharing and thanks for having me involved.
Okay, you want to explain something with what you chat with Africa?
Oh, we've just been talking about sort of the reasons why there has been such a systematic barrier of women getting into the STEM fields, and I've explained that the number of girls in STEM is growing, but only 12% each year, so it's a slow progress, and we're talking about sort of the reason why women and girls do have a natural tendency to go for careers with a more maternal and nurturing outlook. And so we're looking at sort of trying to flip that and use other strengths that that women and girls have in order to contribute to the STEM field. And we're talking a little bit about sort of that pay gap. Africa was mentioning about sort of that pay gap is about 14%. Wow. Within males and female roles, and 1/3 as part-time. So 50% of women are a third part-time. So it's important to look at the value of child rearing, as well as the roles within society as a whole. And there needs to be a bit more of a focus in that conversation as well, because it's about how that's, and we're talking a lot about and obviously naturally talking about a lot of the Indonesian examples on how that works at a village level. But as you know, I've been sort of experiencing more of that work in, let's say, Nicaragua or even Vanuatu, where there's a very masculine society, where I couldn't even go into a village and talk to the men. I have to actually take a man with me in order to be able to speak to men. So a lot of cultures are still not, evolved in the way that the villages in an Indonesian context have evolved so far, where the women already have a strong voice or certain roles. There are lots of societies that are developed, like Australia, where you look at, they have voting rights and they are integrated in the society, but there are still massive pay gaps of at least 15% for a same role, where the higher up roles are mainly led by men. And so I think we really need to start looking at and opening up that conversation where there's high level dialogue, participation, and as Prof Yunita mentioned, it's not about just or was it, sorry, it was Antoinette mentioned, it's not just about number crunching. It's like, oh, we've got to have a woman to make up the numbers. Let's just get someone on there. It's about building those skills and getting them as part of that conversation because they are knowledgeable and because they have experience and skills, not just because they're women. And I think we need to start looking at, you know, different ways of child rearing. And you know, I've lived in Indonesia for 7 years, and I've seen that men are very much involved in the child rearing concept, and they're very much involved in families, and it's a priority as part of Indonesian life. But in other cultures, for example, Pacific Island cultures, there's a lot more that's a female role, and they, you know, the male has different types of privileges. In Australia, as I said, you've got the child rearing, even though it looks very equal, it still comes down to the female in majority to raise the children. So we start having to look at that conversation as to what is equality in a day-to-day basis, not just in some of the engagement roles as part of running a village or creating strategic plans, but more as to, like, let's get back to the base and look at where we can start, you know, empowering these girls and women that we grow up and showing them that, you know, whatever I'm learning and studying is as of equal value as what, you know, your brother has been learning and studying, because that's the gap there.
Thank you very much, Maggie, for your insight. The time is 17:34 now. We still have much time for closing remarks. We would like to please Didi Indrawan after this. But I should mention as moderator that this webinar is supported by University of Indonesia, MIPA, Fakultas Ilmu Pengetahuan, Fakultas Matematika dan Ilmu Pengetahuan Alam, University of Indonesia, as well working with Kehati Foundation, and also the Yayasan Obor Indonesia, who is printing the books. The book will be coming later on, I think this latest September. This is a part of 5 series webinars that we'll be discussing and focusing of books of 24 chapter and from a dozen of countries in Asia. The author of the book is very rich with, you know, experience on nature, culture, and biodiversity engagement. Thank you very much for the coming, for the participation of all the speakers, all respected women here. They are very great. Thank you, Maggie, from I used to base in Australia, right? Bu Yunita and Bu Kiki, Bu Chandra, Bu Royo. Nice to meet you. Pak Jatna also, and the other participants, 100 of you. I cannot mention one by one. And I should give the closing remark for Dr. Didi Indrawan. Didi, your time.
Thank you, Pak Rudi. Hello, everyone. My name is Muhammad Indrawan, but usually I'm called Didi, and I am helping the authors to compile an edited volume, 2 of which you have heard. And thank you very much, Ibu Chandra Kirana and Ibu Nonette, as well as the inspiring comparisons from Ibu Professor Yunita. Also, Miss Maggie, very good comment about gender not being locked in numbers. It is more than that. And especially to the moderator, Pak Fachruddin, it is really excellent facilitation and very timely. And also with Professor Supriatna, Professor Jatna Supriatna, my teacher. who has been inspiring us to engage with sustainable development goals. So as in closing, if I may, I would like to yeah, sorry, I would like to share the, I don't know if you can see, but this is the book that we are talking about. It is called Civic Engagement in Asia.
It's not shared yet.
Not
Not
carrying.
yet?
Not shared yet. Yeah.
Okay, maybe in a moment. And in the meantime, I would like to thank the fellow organizers, excellent, Mas Faris and Mbak Justin and the team. And of course, also the entire FMIPA team who has been supporting this since many days ago. This is talking while we are waiting for the presentation, okay? And and of course, thanks very much to all the participants. We are just taking a look at what the book looks like. So it is an edited volume with Jeffrey Lazar, Helen Hanna, and Theodore Meyer contributing as fellow editors. So I cannot go
I
to the
think
next.
this is too heavy, Didi.
Okay, one moment. Don't worry
Okay.
if we cannot, if we cannot see, then we will see in maybe another webinar.
Yeah. You should
But
now.
we can see now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please don't worry about the PowerPoint. This is close to Maghrib time for people to pray. But okay, it is 24, beginning with building livelihood sovereignty in the Mekong region. And then the second one, Mbak Nonette has told us about so many lessons in resource rights. And then the third one is the hardware. This is very inspiring stuff. Hardware of ecological sustainability in the ASEAN context by Dr. Diki Sofyan. Transformative learning for Thailand's small-scale farmers. The role of citizen science, that's number 5. I'm trying to look for Mbak Chandra Kirana's article. It's number 7, right? Number 7, how biodiversity and culture can fuel economic prosperity. So like her slides, this is also very rich and inspiring. So it is the case of traditional textile artisans of Isumba, Indonesia. I'm very proud and happy to have my 2 sisters here. This is also supported by Samdana, I know. So this is kind of a reunion for what Samdana has been doing. And Mbak Chandra Kirana with her organization Sekar Kawung is now taking off into a new dimension for empowering the economic prosperity. And then number 13 and number 12, it's really original how people are reacting to the Fukushima radiation disaster. It's very interesting how people can teach themselves, how people can become scientists, how people can turn into a citizen scientist. And maybe Japan is very good country to let it flow the paradigm of citizen science. Of course, not only Japan, but many other countries in Asia Pacific. And then the next 12, it includes female-driven climate and environmental action champions from Pakistan. Maybe you have any idea how many there are from Pakistan. I'm myself quite surprised how many from Pakistan, and we will have a webinar for this 26 September. So please watch the space. Also, we have professor from, this is like Ibu Professor Yunita, professor, but not in the campus only, but going to the field for 10 years, number 11. For 10 years, he is fighting the deadly box jellyfish that people think harmless. But for 10 years, not only she study, but she educate people so that people know now box jellyfish is deadly in Thailand. So we will also chapter 24. It is really a privilege. We have Ibu Edna Witular. If we talk about change maker and think about women who establish more than 20 institutions, including with her friends, the very respectable Yayasan Kahati Indonesia. Then it is Ibu Erna Witular. So very privileged to have her sharing her experience. I think Pak Rudi and everyone that covers my explanation about the edited volume, and I hope that it will inspire how civic engagement can be made, and especially making civic engagement is almost useless if you don't have transformative learning. Transformative learning takes time. You see how many years Ibu Chandra Kirana, how many years Ibu Nonette Royo, Ibu Professor Yunita, maybe Miss Maggie also has her stories how to establish transformative learning and how it takes not 1 year, not 2 years, but maybe decades. So this is really an appreciation to change makers. Many of them are coming from humble background, but and many of them are not news makers, but they are change makers on the ground. So that is about the book, and I thank participants once again for your loyalty to stay on, and of course all the contributors and the organizers. So I return now to Pak Rudy. Please, Rudy, take over. Thank you again.
Thank you, Pak Didi. Thank you for all the participants the engagement with this webinar. I should give this to Panitia. Is any more advertising from University of Indonesia more? Some more? Please share your screen. Pak? Okay,
excellent.
If we don't have anything already, so we going to say goodbye for all, and we going to have another series, more series regarding the chapters and also dialogues on the transformation of civic engagement, which is many different topics we're talking about. We're talking about the culture, religion, and also faith in the next future. Okay. Thank you very much, Pak Didi, Bu Yunita. Goodbye for all.
Thank you very much for all your
nice, productive
your
life. Stay healthy.
Happy to see you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Okay.
Pak Rudi.
Ya.
Ini partisipan sudah keluar. Sekali lagi Terima kasih Pak Rudi and everyone. Luar biasa sekali. Timingnya sangat tepat. Dan
Ya,
fasilitas
udah mau maghrib.
itu luar biasa. Ya.
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 Ya, untung ada